Today, I am painting my very first miniature that is being executive produced by a channel member. This added an incredible amount of pressure which I did not see coming and which I have not experienced before while painting. To compound the issue, I made an unforced error pretty early on in this paint up that made me want to give up on it altogether. But I hate to let people down, so I pressed on. I'll share with you the mistakes that were made, how to avoid them, and what I did to overcome this potential psychological pitfall. Welcome to Trehane Miniatures. As mentioned earlier, this paint up is for a miniature that a member at the executive producer level selected. I'll feature one member selected miniature to paint each month, and this one is my first. The chosen miniature for this month is the Cheshire Cat from the Wonderland's War board game. Things started very routine as I prepped the model with a flat black primer followed by a coat of dark plum pro acryl. I want the primary color of this Cheshire Cat to be nearly black. This will help make all of the bright pink highlights for the cat and glowing bits appear even more vibrant. Dark plum will be the perfect near black color for the body, as well as providing a stepping stone to the brighter pink hues. Employing some airbrush work up front should help facilitate easier painting going forward. Unfortunately, this idea only works if I don't screw things up, which I do. Setting up the foundation for the pink OSL glow on the back side of the miniature is super straightforward. I've done this dozens of times. Using quinacridone magenta through the airbrush has become my go-to foundational color for pink OSL. I spray from a distance at the same angle from where I imagine the pink light to be shining. The airbrush spray and the shape of the miniature take care of the rest. I end up with a fine-looking dark pink layer for the OSL. Next, I want to use white through the airbrush to underpaint all of the glowing areas around the face. These include the eyes, teeth, and ears. I don't usually attempt to airbrush with this type of precision, so there is definitely a pucker factor with this step. I lower the airbrush pressure down to 15 psi, or about 1 bar. I do this because I know that I need to get fairly close to the miniature to have any semblance of accuracy with the 0.3mm needle of the airbrush. This goes extremely well, and all of the light areas are successfully underpainted with titanium white ink. My confidence is boosted. Then I proceed to apply the first color to the eyes and teeth. I'm choosing orange for this since these features appear to have a yellow glow to them in the game art. The paint is well thinned, the air pressure is low, and I'm confident in my accuracy. I always like to thin my paint way down and build up the opacity in layers. The main reason that I do this is to prevent nozzle clogging. For this paint up, there are 2 additional reasons. First, the low opacity will allow the color to look bright over the white underpainting. Second, because I'm using such a low air pressure setting, I want to make sure that the paint will flow smoothly through the airbrush nozzle. I end up with a very nice orange glow on the eyes and teeth. I am feeling unstoppable at the moment. Then I examine the game art and notice there is a slight red shade around the edges of the teeth and mouth. So why not run one more color through the airbrush and further simplify the rest of the painting that needs to be done with the standard brush? What could go wrong? Well, as stated earlier, I tend to over-thin my paints for airbrushing. I'm also working much closer to the miniature than I'm used to. These 2 factors resulted in some serious spiderwebbing with the red paint. This could have been avoided by using slightly thicker paint or further reducing the air pressure. Another way to avoid spiderwebbing is to work further away from the miniature, but this isn't really an option here since I need to be close to the miniature for accuracy. As it stands, this is an unfortunate mistake, as I was just about to wrap up the airbrush work. But I can take it a step further by turning an unfortunate mistake into a stupid mistake. I try using my finger to wipe off the spider-webbed paint. This not only removes the red paint that I just sprayed, but also removes all of the other layers down to the black primer. Oh, and I did this twice, once on each fang. That's what I get for rushing through the various layers. This is incredibly frustrating, especially considering how well everything was going right up until that final color. So now I have a decision to make. I can go back and start over with the airbrush, or I can press on with the project and use a standard brush to try to correct the situation, or I can give up on it altogether. That's not going to happen. I'm not one to give up on any paint up, nor do I enjoy repainting miniatures. So the answer is obvious. I'm going to proceed with the standard brush and correct the situation as best I can. I was planning to use titanium white at this point anyway to brighten the center of the glowing attributes like the eyes, ears, and teeth, so this isn't too much of a detour. I'll simply begin by completely coating the fangs before moving on to refining the glow of the other features. The teeth won't look quite as nice as if they were successfully completed with the airbrush work, but it'll still look fine. Some people run into a situation like this and say, trust the process. I have a very similar saying that I like to use that goes like this: when the miniature you're painting looks like shit, just keep painting until it doesn't. That's basically what I'm doing here. I'm going to finish up these glowing features for y'all, and then I'll move on to one more trick that I have up my sleeve. I still need to paint those fine recessed calligraphy lines all over the body without making a mess. I'll get to that as soon as I finish up the teeth and eyes. For now, I'm simply glazing over the white highlights with orange airbrush paint. I'm making sure to leave a little of the red showing around each tooth. The last thing that I want to do is screw up the red that has already cost me so much time. I return one final time to the titanium white. I use this to draw in even smaller bright points on the teeth and in the eyes. I'm ultimately going for a yellow glow, so I need one more level of brightness which will make it look yellow. For the yellow glow, I'm using Golden High Flow Benzimidazole Yellow. I simply glaze this over the white highlights just as I did with the orange. This finishes off the yellow glow for the eyes and teeth. Before getting to the fine line details on the body, I quickly wrap up the pink OSL using dark hot pink, titanium white, and fluorescent pink. If you'd like to see a more detailed breakdown of how I accomplished this identical pink OSL using only a standard brush, I'll link to my Nemesis Retaliation Medic video here. Pink is quickly becoming my favorite color OSL to add to a miniature. I'm going to demonstrate two different types of pin wash to demonstrate how to paint the recessed fine lines that run all over the cat's body. First, I'm using a white oil pin wash. This is to ensure the subsequent layer of fluorescent purple paint looks nice and bright within these recesses. I have thinned it significantly with mineral spirits. I'm talking like 15 to 20 parts mineral spirits to 1 part paint. This allows it to flow effortlessly into the grooves that we want to eventually glow fluorescent purple. The one major advantage that an oil wash has over an acrylic pin wash is that it's easy to clean up any messy strokes. I apply this pretty liberally over the area around these grooves and don't have to worry about it staining the layer of paint around this design. I can even let this completely dry on the surrounding surfaces and come back later with a little mineral spirits to remedy the situation. In fact, if I let it dry, it's actually easier to clean up. This is because I can freely wipe the excess wash without the risk of soaking up the wash within the recesses. The Q-tip I use will glide right over the groove that we want to remain white without damaging it. In this particular instance, I am not patient enough to let the pin wash dry first. I immediately start cleaning up around the recessed lines. This means that I have to be very precise with my cleanup, or the absorbent nature of the cotton swab will suck up the wet pin wash right out of those shallow depressions. The purple acrylic pin wash is just as easy to create, but a little less forgiving to use. I use Airbrush Flow Improver to reduce the paint to a nice thin consistency. The Flow Improver will help draw the paint into the recesses using capillary action. I'm attempting to be very accurate with this placement. Unlike an oil wash, any overspill should be cleaned up immediately. Fortunately for this color scheme, the fluorescent purple paint is so translucent that it has almost no impact on the surrounding dark plum layer. So even though I'm not being perfectly accurate, I have no intention of cleaning up any of the excess purple pin wash. This bright purple paint over the white underpainting yields a nice, bright purple detail. Last but not least, I need to paint the sword. This is kind of like an incredibly bright non-metallic metal. Therefore, I decide to begin with a solid white base layer instead of black. Before jumping in with the pinks, I quickly touch some orange to little bits of the handle wrap to differentiate it from the rest of the sword. This is the only orange that this weapon is going to see. The grip can use some subtle pink accents mixed in with the orange. Then I attack the blade with a complete coat of fluorescent pink. From here, I use dark hot pink and fluorescent purple to darken some areas of the saber. I'll also use titanium white to add some intense reflections. And this wraps up painting the Cheshire Cat for Wonderland's War. It was both frustrating and rewarding at the same time. I'd like to thank my amazing channel members for supporting the effort that I put into making these videos. You too can become a channel member for as little as $1.99 per month and receive perks such as early access to videos, extended versions of all of our painting tutorials, and even a tier that lets you choose a miniature for me to paint. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to join our growing community engaged in a war against reality.